Hey everyone! In today's video, we're diving into some of the most common English mistakes non-native speakers make, and more importantly, how to fix them. One of the most frequent challenges for non-native English speakers is accurately using articles like a, an, and the. These tiny words may seem insignificant, but they actually carry a lot of meaning. A and an refer to something general or non-specific, like a dog or an apple, while the points to something specific, as in the dog or the apple you showed me. Non-native speakers often omit these articles or use them incorrectly because their native languages might not have equivalents. To improve, focus on practicing with short sentences and identifying if the subject is general or specific. For example, instead of saying, I bought car, remember to say, I bought a car, because it's an unspecified car. Another common challenge is verb tense, especially with the present perfect tense, which doesn't exist in many other languages. English speakers use the present perfect to describe actions that have relevance to the present, like, I have lived here for 5 years. It's easy to confuse it with the simple past, which states that something happened at a specific time. Examples: I lived there 5 years ago. To get a handle on this, try using for or since as indicators for the present perfect tense. Practice sentences like, I have studied English since 2010 to make it easier to distinguish between the two tenses. The use of prepositions is another notorious pitfall. Words like in, on, and at have specific uses, yet often overlap in meaning, making it confusing for learners. Non-native speakers may say, I am good in English, instead of, I am good at English. The best way to tackle this is by learning prepositions in phrases rather than trying to translate word for word from your native language. Phrases like interested in, good at, or depend on are worth memorizing. Look for patterns in these expressions and practice using them in context to improve. Word order, particularly in questions and negative statements, is also a tricky area. For example, English often requires an auxiliary verb like do in questions or negatives, but many languages don't. Instead of saying, you like coffee, practice forming the correct question, do you like coffee? Likewise, in negative sentences, try saying, I don't know him, instead of, I know him not. Regularly practicing sentence structure and noting patterns in questions can help make this second nature. Pronunciation is another area where non-native speakers make mistakes, particularly with certain vowel sounds and consonants that don't exist in their native language. The th sound in words like think and this is a good example. Many learners replace th with sounds they're more comfortable with, like s or d. This can result in sink instead of think or dis instead of this. Practicing minimal pairs, like think and sink, in front of a mirror or using phonetic guides can help you master these sounds. Using overly formal language or directly translating idioms from your native language can make sentences sound awkward or unnatural in English. For example, phrases like make a photo instead of take a photo, or open the light instead of turn on the light sound strange to native speakers. A useful tip is to learn phrases as whole units rather than as individual words. Practicing common phrases and idiomatic expressions will help you sound more fluent and natural over time. Mastering these common mistakes requires consistency and practice, but with focus and patience, you can overcome them and become a more confident, accurate English speaker. Remember, language learning is about progress, not perfection, and small improvements each day will add up over time. Here are a few more common English mistakes along with tips to correct them. 1. Confusing make and do. Many languages don't have separate verbs for make and do, so it's a common point of confusion. In English, make often refers to creating or producing something, like make dinner or make a decision, while do is used for activities or actions, like do homework or do the dishes. To master this, try learning common phrases with make and do as set expressions. Practice sentences like make a phone call and do your best to internalize these differences. 2. Incorrect plural forms. English has many irregular plural forms that don't just add an s or s at the end. Words like child become children, person becomes people, and mouse becomes mice. Learners sometimes say child's or people's due to the instinct to add s. To tackle this, focus on memorizing irregular plurals as you come across them and practicing with sentences. 3. Misusing much and many. Much and many are both used to describe quantity, but they apply to different types of nouns. Much is for uncountable nouns, like much water or much advice, and many is for countable nouns, like many books or many ideas. A simple trick is to remember that if you can count it, use many. If you can't, use much. 4. Overusing very or really. Non-native speakers often use very or really to intensify adjectives, like saying very good or really beautiful. While these are correct, native speakers often use more specific words instead, like excellent or gorgeous. Try expanding your vocabulary by using stronger adjectives for emphasis. This will make your speech sound more advanced and nuanced. 5. Mixing up say, tell, speak, and talk. These verbs all relate to communication but are used differently. Say and tell are often followed by an object. Examples: she said something or she told him, while speak and talk are used more generally. Examples: they talked about the movie. Remember that tell needs a direct object, like tell someone, while say doesn't. Practice with examples to make these distinctions feel natural. 6. Using since and for with time. Since and for can be tricky when describing time. Use since with a specific point in the past, like since 2020, and for to describe a duration of time, like for 3 years. Non-native speakers sometimes mix these up by saying for 2020 instead of since 2020. Practicing with sentences like I have lived here since last year or I have been studying English for 5 years can help reinforce this. 7. Directly translating expressions. Sometimes, expressions that make sense in a speaker's native language don't translate directly into English. For example, a native language might say something like enter the car instead of get in the car, or close the light instead of turn off the light. Idioms, in particular, can be tricky, so learning common English expressions as fixed phrases can help make your sentences sound more natural. 8. Incorrect word stress and intonation. English relies heavily on word stress and intonation to convey meaning, and stressing the wrong syllable or using a flat intonation can make speech harder to understand. For instance, stressing the second syllable in present, like present, can mean to introduce or give, while stressing the first syllable, present, typically refers to a gift or the current time. Practicing with audio or listening exercises can help with mastering this essential skill. 9. Using too much passive voice. While the passive voice is technically correct, English often favors active voice for clear, direct sentences. For example, instead of saying, the book was read by me, it's more natural to say, I read the book. Overusing passive voice can make sentences sound awkward or formal, so try to identify and use active constructions whenever possible. 10. Misplacing adverbs. Adverbs like usually, often, or always are sometimes placed incorrectly. In English, they often go before the main verb, I usually go to bed early, or after the verb to be, she is always on time. To improve, practice identifying where adverbs fit naturally in sentences and take note of these patterns when reading or listening to English. Improving in these areas takes time and practice, So keep challenging yourself to apply these tips in real conversations or writing. The more you practice, the more natural these corrections will feel. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.